Perspective is like a lens, it shapes what we see and how we respond. Too often, we get stuck in our own viewpoint and miss the bigger picture. But when we learn to see through other person's eyes, see through another person's eyes, we open the door of empathy, stronger relationships, and even better decision making. The real question is, are we willing to trade comfort for understanding? That's our opening thing. First thing we're going to do, we're going to start off with, and I am not going to attempt to do this definition any justice. Ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking to Mr. Mindset. The YouTube channel is called Empowering Perspectives. We like different perspectives over here, you know. With that being said, perspective, a particular way of viewing or interpreting something. What
Two
say you
thumbs,
on this definition, sir?
two thumbs up.
Two thumbs up. We're going to slide down. We got four definitions that we're going to use to kind of set the tone for this conversation. The next one is going to be empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel and understand another person's experiences. Ish. Yep. I like it though. Bias, prejudice, or learnings that distort perspectives.
I can go with that.
All right. And the last one is reframing, looking at a situation from an angle to find deeper meaning.
Ish, but
Ish.
I think we'll talk more about that in time.
Mm-hmm. Use the baseline and the guideline for the show chat. So here we go. Here we go. We're gonna jump right into it. Why do people struggle to understand perspectives outside of their own?
So, great question, first of all.
Mm,
I will start off by saying they have to understand what perspective is, right? And the definition that you put up was a particular way of viewing or interpreting a thing. What you have to realize is that you seeing a thing, and this kind of goes back to a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago when we started talking about mindset and things of that nature, right?
mm,
What I need to understand is that there is a governing body that that interprets things when I view or when I look at the world. Okay. That governing body throws a blanket over what I see. And therefore, I automatically add my own understanding to that thing, which now creates the understanding of that thing. Case in point, I think I used the example of this cup the last time, right? If you can look at this and you might say it's blue. That's what I'm going to say. It's blue because
mm,
it's in the blue family for me. But here's the thing that I know about me. I know that I'm colorblind. You don't know that I'm colorblind, right? So even though I embrace the notion that I am colorblind and I am okay with being colorblind based upon certain colors, when I look at this, I say blue, you say it's the blue green. Okay, that's fine. It could be blue green. But the other side of it is that I don't reject what you're saying. So when we look at why people struggle with understanding perspectives outside of their own, because they believe the foundational information which is found in their subconscious mind is 100% true without any flaw. And that by itself is a flaw. And that foundational understanding, which comes from my subconscious mind, may came through my upbringing and my prior experiences. So when you tell me that, hey, you can achieve anything you want to achieve in life, but my background says, no, I see what people go through. And people used to say, well, it's the man that's holding you down and so forth and so on. I reject that information because my subconscious memory is telling me that what you're saying is not true. So I think
mm.
that's one of the main reasons why we struggle with understanding perspectives because we don't feel the need to challenge the assumptions that govern those perspectives.
I like that. I think another reason why people struggle to understand perspectives outside of their own is ego. I think there are people who have gotten to a certain point in their life, they've learned a certain amount of information, and no matter what, this is their perspective. Now, that's not to discount that, we learn certain information and we reject certain stuff that just ain't right, but we're talking about something. And I like that analogy with the cup. I will say, way back a couple years ago on Elevated Dialogue, when you broke that down for Antoine, is when I really, really, really got it. You know what I'm saying? And you kind of skimmed over that. You know what I mean? When you talked about that, just now. But when the way coach, I'll go a little bit deeper with it because it was so it's stuck. The way you put it, it's stuck. And coach had a cup and he was like, on this side, this is what you see, and on this side, this is what the other person sees. But I can't see the other side, but they're both right. But once you start having a conversation and y'all are both are talking about each other's perspective, now both people have a better understanding of you about said cup or whatever talking point that we're talking about. So I really think that sometimes people are gotten to a point to where they think they know everything. Their ego is in the way, and it prevents them from understanding perspectives outside of their own. And I can't say that there hadn't been a time where I was probably there. There
Yeah.
were some things when I was like, man, I know I'm right about this.
Mhm.
Only for somebody to come in and bring a different perspective, like, whoa, and challenge me. I welcome the challenge now on certain things, whereas back then I knew I pushed it away. And I will say that some of that may have to do with my ego.
Sure. I don't disagree with the ego thing, but
Hmm.
think I think the interpretation of the ego
Hmm.
is because I don't want it to be a blanket statement that ego is bad, right?
Yes.
Um, ego is bad when it gets in the way of collaboration, right? When ego prevents me from collaborating with another person. So and when you go and you understand ego, you're here, you'll see ego, but then you have the super ego as well, right? So there's a difference between the two. But if a lot of times we talk about ego, is that it's all encompassing. So I want to say from that way. But going back to that analogy with the cup, because I think that's important for all of us to remember, my perspective, and I think I said it on Saturday as well,
Hmm.
my perspective is only my interpretation of reality. That interpretation is governed by my subconscious mind. So my subconscious mind sees a thing and translate it based upon the information that my subconscious mind has. So my perspective, although it is true for me, it is not the truth. It is not the totality of reality. Your perspective is yours. When we get to the point that where we can talk about different perspectives and see where they meet, that's where we get closer to the truth. And I think for some people, um, it is hard for them to believe anything that someone else is saying that goes outside of what their subconscious mind is telling them. Like, I don't want to bring politics into this, but it's easy to talk about politics because we see it all the time. We live in a society to where we're supposed to have bipartisanship. And if you understand what bipartisanship is, two by parties agreeing on things. But when we look at reality, like, they never seem to agree, right? And if you just confuse what it looks like, you got Republicans and Democrats, and it's supposed to be a mix of them that make up the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they're supposed to come together and vote on certain topics. And the agreement that they have on this thing is how certain laws and so forth get passed. Well, what you're having is a group, and I hate to say this, but it's a group of perspectives going against another group of perspectives because they have their own agendas. And when you have your own agenda of perspectives, now what you're doing is you're arm wrestling with somebody else because you're trying to get what you want out of the deal and they're trying to get what they want out of the deal. When some people say that's collaboration, I don't necessarily see that as being collaboration. I think collaboration is where we get together and it's a win-win because both of us grow from it.
Yeah, I totally agree with it, especially with the analogy and you talked about the politics and stuff like that. Because it seems like a lot of people have just chosen a side, and whatever that side says, that's what we roll with. We're not even trying to look at a different perspective, even about the same conversation or about the same thing. I remember, during the pandemic, you know what I mean, when things was going on, I was used to watching just one side. Well, I've needed different perspectives. And, I was like, well, let me go over here on this channel and see what they say. And
Mhm.
what I found was they were both talking about the same thing, but there's two totally different perspectives about it. And the reality of it is, both perspectives there have been some truth in there. They may both have had valid points, but because some people have chosen to be one side, they're not even willing to hear, a different perspective from the other side. Some people have teamed up. I'm on this team and I'm rocking with you, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
And I think that rolling into the next question, I think that can be an issue. So just like we may have kind of already answered this in the previous question, at least touched on it, is when is perspective a strength and when can it be a weakness?
When, just to get to the answer,
Mm-hmm.
um, when humility is absent and I refuse to collaborate,
Mm,
right? That's when it's a weakness.
mm,
When is it a strength? When I recognize that even though I know what I know is partial at best.
mm-hmm.
And I am open, and like you said earlier, I welcome a different perspective now. I'm looking forward to somebody, and I tend to say it a lot. I look
Yes.
forward to somebody telling me that I'm wrong because I'm getting ready to learn something new. That's like a foundational thing that I really and truly do believe. I want somebody to say, I don't agree with you. Okay, well, tell me why. But if you're just telling me a story, that story doesn't tell me why. You just
Mm,
telling me that you don't agree with me, and then you're going to tell me a story about what you actually think. That's not telling me
yeah.
why I'm wrong. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I'm, and I think that's where we struggle a lot as people. Like if I believe a thing, my instant inclination is to assume that if anybody believe anything outside of what I believe, they are 100% wrong. No, nor
Mm-hmm.
do I believe I'm 100% right. That is a strength to recognize, like, yeah, I know some stuff. I know that this cup is red. See, I got cups everywhere. I know that
Mm-hmm.
this cup is red, right? But then you can say, well, that cup is red, blah, 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 blah. But I say, yeah, but here's some click on some writing right here, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now I just gave you some more information to add to your perspective. But if I
Yeah.
never did that, you'd be like, no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Well, I didn't ask you what you agreed with. I think
Yeah.
that's part of the problem. I think part of the problem is we believe that we have to announce that I agree or disagree. News flash. I don't care if you agree or disagree. Just give me your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you just give me your perspective, then that, like, I think the need to say I agree or disagree kind of makes people put up a wall against what you're getting ready to say. Eliminate the agree or disagree and just say, well, you know what? I got your point of view, Unc, but let me share this with you if I can. Like, look at it from this way. Now, what I did is I erased any type of rejection that you were previously postured with. The minute that I say I agree, or the minute that I say I disagree, well, I don't like how you said that, or whatever the case may be. Like we are conditioned to be like, oh, man, I don't know, because this kind of feels like a personal attack against my foundational belief system. So now you can't even hear what I'm saying. But if I can just say, hey, man, I get that. But had you thought about this? And it could be something totally opposite of what you said. You can, and your response might be, no, I never considered that. Or you'd be like, yeah, I did consider that, but it didn't work for me. Well, what ways did you attempt to do it that way? So now we're getting into the conversation about something that you may have tried and you concluded that it didn't work because what you didn't work. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just may mean that your process that you used was flawed. So let's go back and
Mm-hmm.
look at the process and let's adjust the process. And then you might see that it actually works. But I just believe that because this question poses opposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you understand opposition, opposition is the thing that prevents us from collaborating. Going back to the whole politics things, right? The reason why I think our political system is broken because it is automatic opposition. Because I have this way of thinking and I have this way of thinking. Well, what if we go back to the foundation and we say that this and this is supposed to be under this? And this is the rule. This is the vision for why this exists. So if this is the vision, these two people need to go back to the vision and say, we're working towards this. And now it's not an opposition. It's not about, well, we're strong on this side, but we're weak on this. So we're going to stay away from the thing that we're weak on. Right. And I know I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole in this question,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's necessary and to some degree because a lot of times we view the thing that we're weak with, like we try to avoid it. No, don't avoid the thing that you're weak at. Run to it, right? Find somebody else who is strong in that and become a student of their strength. That's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Man, I ain't gonna add nothing to that. That was great. And then I think, everything that we talked about so far, all kind of it's all working together right now. And so I just want to leave it right there, man. I want to push on to the next question. This one is for us and the chat. You know what I mean? So this question is for the chat and it's for us. If someone had to live one full day in your shoes, what warning label should they get first? And I'll start with me.
I'm
It's
sorry.
going,
I was about to spew my answer real quick. I'm glad you.
bruh, bruh.
Oh my
First
goodness.
of all, here's your warning label. It's going to be direct, right? And for some people, that may come off harsh. It may come off however you want. You may feel some type of way with it. But my warning label is going to be, it's going to be direct and it's going to be honest. And I only say that as a warning label because it seems like a lot of people get offended when you come directly and when you are honest. So this is for those people. Now, this ain't a warning label for coach. You know what I mean? When I come to coach and I'm direct and I'm honest, it ain't an issue because we have both grown in our relationship to whereas we don't have issues like that and we're open to different perspectives. You know what I'm saying? But for me, right off the rip, my warning label is you're going to get it direct and you're going to get it honestly.
I get it. I like that.
You get it?
If somebody else had to walk a day in my shoes, what warning label would they get first? You're gonna have to be cautiously optimistic,
Ooh.
and I tell you why. And this is the part that's going to sound a little, you know, It's gonna have a little hot sauce on it,
Okay.
right?
I like hot sauce.
Because everybody ain't what they say they are. So you're going to have to be cautiously optimistic, giving them the time and the space to grow into what they want to be. Like, and I don't think that's a bad thing to
Mhm.
recognize that, right? You just have to learn not to judge people at the level of their conversation because that might be what they're striving towards. That can be frustrating. Listen when I tell you, it can be frustrating. However, it can also help you to continue to work on you because you may need to be working on some patience as well. So that's why I say you have to be cautiously optimistic.
I like that one. I like that one. I like that one. I can relate. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah,
Moving
yeah,
right along. I can
yeah.
relate. Man.
That's the help
We
industry, bro. I'm sorry.
uh That's the help industry. Yep. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, would you rather? Would you rather? Would you rather? That's the next segment. We got 10 would you rather questions as I'm looking at them. Depending on what they look like, maybe get to all 10, might not get to all 10. You ready, coach?
Let's do it.
All right. Would you rather see life 10 years ahead or see life through someone else's eyes for a day?
Mm,
See life 10 years ahead or see life through someone else's eyes for a day?
I'm gonna choose the 10 years ahead.
Mhm. I agree. I like that one too. Would you rather always be understood or always understand others?
Understand others.
Me too. As I was thinking understand others, I slightly thought about being understood. But I think when I'm looking at always being understood, I'm never going to always be understood. There's always going to be somebody that's not going to understand me.
Sure.
And that's okay. But I would love to always be able to understand coach's perspective, regardless of whether or not I agree or don't agree. Go ahead.
But remember, this conversation is mastering the art of perspective.
Mastering the art of perspective.
So if I'm trying to master the art of perspective, I don't seek to be understood. I seek to understand first because I want to understand your perspective.
Hmm. Mastering the art of perspective. There you go. Would you rather switch lives with your best friend or your toughest critic?
Um, that's a tough one to be honest with you.
Yes.
Actually, both because I want to see both of their perspectives. Like I don't mind, I don't mind criticism, right? Even if a person delivers it to me in a very immature manner, I don't mind that. Because
Mhm.
even within the space of their immature delivery, I can still see what they're trying to say. As long as we don't get into the name calling and things like that, I'm good, right? But I do want to see what my best friend sees when they actually see me. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because that can help me to improve. Not that I want to bask in, how great and wonderful. No, that's not what I'm saying. Like I
Mhm.
really want to know how I'm impacting the lives of others so I can be better. And I think for me, that's kind of like how I see it.
Yeah, I like that. I was rolling with the toughest critic. Whoever my toughest critic is, I will be able to see why they see or think whatever they want to think. You know what I
Mhm,
mean?
mhm.
But at the same time, do I really care? But then at the same time, my toughest critic may be somebody that I respect and that I
Sure,
value too.
sure.
So definitely got the both.
But
If I had to pull one, probably going to go with the best friend thing because I think that's probably probably going to slide a little bit to the best friend side.
yeah, and the reason why, and well, not the reason why, but when I need the why, right?
Mhm.
It's almost as though I'm looking for a reason to reject perspective at that point.
Mm.
So that's why I say I can take
Yeah.
it from the best friend, I can take it from the critic. And I don't
Mhm.
necessarily need to know why the critics see me the way they see it, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to necessarily see why my best friend see me the way they see me. But
Mhm.
if I can just accept what they see at the level of what they see, it's enough for me to look at myself and make the necessary adjustment
Mm. Mm. I like it. Would you rather be judged fairly or never judged at all?
fairly.
Fairly all day. Would you rather listen to someone vent or share your own struggles?
Vent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd rather hear somebody vent.
Not that
Uh,
I have a problem with sharing my struggles, but if I have to
yeah.
choose between the two, I choose vent.
Mhm. Would you rather win an argument or gain perspective?
Gain perspective.
Would you rather live in a world of clones or in a world of total opposites?
Opposites.
Opposites. Would you rather be heard or be seen?
Heard.
Yeah, I'd rather be heard. I don't really care about being seen. I mean, to a extent, I don't even really care about being heard unless it's
Right.
to certain people, you
Right.
know? But
That's why I was like, if I got to choose
yeah,
one, heard. Yeah. So
yeah. Would you rather ask one powerful question or give one perfect answer?
one powerful question.
Yeah, especially to the right person and you get the right response. That's what I want. Yeah. Would you rather live with blind faith or constant doubt? Mm.
Definitely blind faith.
Mhm. Imagine living in constant doubt.
Well, so the reason why I took a pause, if if
Mhm.
if I'm being transparent, if there is no probability of doubt, then there is no faith.
Mm.
So it's not that I want the constant doubt, but I have to have the potential of doubt in me for faith to actually be present.
Mhm. I like it. Those are good would you rathers, man. I like those.
Yeah.
What's the danger of assuming your perspective is the only one that matters? What's the danger of assuming your perspective is the only one that matters?
The danger of assuming my perspective is the only one that matters is that I will end up living a life of isolationism.
Mm.
If I'm not open to hearing another person's perspective, but going back to what I said previously, how am I available to collaborate? How am I available to relate? Like the like literally the root word of relationship is relate. So if my perspective is the only one that matters, I don't have any relationships with depth or breadth. Like I probably exist around people that tolerate me because all I do is talk about my perspective and I cast down or reject theirs every time they talk. And think about it. How much do you think a person is willing to talk to you if every time they share a thought, you be like, yeah, I don't believe that, or that ain't right, or that's stupid. Where'd you get that from?
Mm,
So yeah, isolationism.
I get that. Um, that's kind of what I'm looking at, but I kind of want to. I guess before that, it's all bundled in together is the relationship piece. You know what I mean? If I'm always assuming that my perspective is on and right, that's going to cost me a lot of relationships. Like you said, people may not want to be around me. Like I don't know. And it's funny because there are people out there like that. And we probably see these people on social media, and we probably got some of them in our families, or even some people that may be close to us,
Right.
and we like, darn it, man, just like, bro, like you could be a whole lot better and a whole lot farther ahead if you would just see things from a different perspective. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And in a sense, I don't know if we're going to chalk this up to youth or development, but if you looking at, I talk to high school kids on a regular basis. Their perspective about life is something else, and I see them all the time, and I'm just like, you know, like I said, I don't know if it's perspective or developmental, but I see them, and I see some of the decisions that they're making and how they moving, and I'm just like, man, your perspective on life is not going to lead you down a path that going to end up with success. But again, do you think that is more developmental because they're young, or do you think that that is intertwined with perspective?
If I leave it at the level of, so I think it's all connected, first of all.
Okay.
If I leave it at the level of developmental, then I'm not getting to the root cause of the problem. The
Hmm.
root cause of the problem is parenting. Let's just be completely transparent.
Hmm.
Parents are responsible for developing their children. When they develop their children, they give them a certain set of parameters, presets that govern their mindset. And therefore, once that mindset is governed, now they have the proper perspective when it comes to life. So when a
Hmm.
person doesn't have the proper perspective, we got to go back to the thing that governs their mindset, which is what I tend to call presets. And those presets dictate what that person's foundational understanding of reality is.
I like that one. I like that one. Can you recall a time when someone else's perspective saved you from a mistake?
Sure. Which one you want? I'll go all the way back to the army. I talked about it before. Tony
Yeah.
Majors. I talked about Tony
Mhm.
Majors. Tony Majors was like real strict when it came to me. Like it seemed like every other staff sergeant, he gave them a break. But it was like with me, like that brother was locked in.
Mhm.
And it was like it took him, and I like hindsight being 2020, I like the way he did it. Because in my mind, I literally said when I was talking to a good friend of mine who was trying to help me to understand the conversation that he and Tony had, I was like, well, why he just didn't come talk to me? And he was like, he want to, but you ain't ready yet. And I think that's the space a lot of people find themselves in. They want something that they're not ready for yet. You have not gone through the, going back to your term, you have not went through the proper mindset reframing, right? And once you get to the point of reframing, reconditioning, if you will, once you get to the point of reconditioning, then certain conversations are available to you. But if you never go through that process of reconditioning your mindset, then it's like I can have a conversation with you, but it's almost like me wasting my time. So when he said that, it really resonated. And then when me and Tony finally had a conversation, I was 100% open to what he was saying because I could tell the conversation that he was, saying. It wasn't like, well, you this and you that and you this and you that. Like, yeah, it was some yous in there, but it was more so about my future that he was concerned with. And he was like, if you just do this instead of doing this, like there's no, I mean, like the sky's the limit. Like you're
Mm.
not even scratching the potential that you actually have. Like I can see the potential that you have. You can't see it because where you are, you think you're perfect in that. And he was so right. So I think, and whoever's hearing this, like, this is, if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you, it's for you. Because I think a lot of times we think we're perfect in our perspective, and the way I'm doing this thing is 100% right. And sure, what you're sharing with me is some information, but it's really not information to you. It's really data. You think it's information, but it's really data, because you have not done the necessary thing to the information, or to the data, to turn it into information. So you get bits and pieces of data. And so what ends up happening is, like, you got all these bits and pieces of data. And social media is terrible when it comes down to data, because there's so much data that's coming at you, and you ain't processed not one of it, but you'll call it information. No, you're lying to yourself. It's not information to you. And it's definitely not what you know, because you have not provided any meaning to it. And it's not knowledge, because you have not leveraged one thing that you know. So you're looking at these data points and talking about, oh, this is information and this is knowledge. No, it's not. You're wasting your time trying to,
Mm.
like, you. That's why people hear stuff on the internet, and at the end of the day, they have an issue actioning it, because, well, it is what it is.
I got a sergeant major too. So my response is, can I recall a time when someone's perspective saved me from a mistake? Um, when I came in, you talked about the students and how certain information from their parents is, kind of put into them, kind of injected to them, and then they eventually, develop a certain perspective. Well, if I take that and transfer that over and apply that to the military, I see some similarities. I came in as a combat engineer. For the first 3 years of my life, all males, any words you want to say, you can say. I came in 95. So when I came in, you could still, sing a little bit of the Jody cadences and all these different things, because it was just males. Everywhere you go, wasn't but do. I was in a combat engineer battalion. We had like three females. They worked in like S1 in the mail room, and what I mean, stuff like that. That was about it. They wasn't on the line. Females, I don't know what it's like now, but they wasn't allowed to be combat engineers, and they wasn't allowed to be engineers in the officer branch. Things have since changed again, at least for the officers, but I don't know what it's like with the enlisted part. But when I got out after 3 years, so I got out, I went in 94, got out in 97, went back in 2000. When I went back in 2000, I switched MOSs. I became an air traffic controller. Now there's not as many men, there's more females, but can't sing Jody cadences no more. You can't do this. People don't work out as much, and they're not as hua hua as in aviation as they were in combat arm jobs. So I took what I learned from my NCOs from combat engineer over into aviation, and it didn't work well. So our major like, hey, look, you can beat the soldiers down all day long. You great at that, brother. Can you build them back up? Can you teach them from the not to turn down, but can you teach them what's the lesson in what you're doing? What's the lesson in making a soldier do push-ups for 20 minutes or 30 minutes? What's the lesson behind that? Can that soldier walk away with a valuable lesson from whatever mistake or whatever it is that they did wrong? And that perspective right there, not only necessarily what saved me, in a sense, as it became developed, probably saved my career. You know what I mean? Because I could see how, since the Army had changed, some of the things that we were allowed to do, and some of the things that my NCOs may have been allowed to do with me, not so conducive in aviation. You can't call a female every single thing that my NCOs called me. Now I'm looking at, harassment and other different things like that. So for me, understanding Sergeant Major's perspective and understanding Sergeant Major's perspective gave me actually helped me, and then it came from a reputable source. This Sergeant Major, this ain't like, another E5, which the E5 information would have been valid as well, but I don't know if my ego at the time would have allowed me to listen to another E5. So that's my time right there. It's all
Yeah, man.
major.
Yeah, man. I got it. It's one of those things, and it's a humbling experience too.
Yeah.
If it's done accurately, and that's why I said what I said. For anybody who is listening to this and this resonates with you, like I'm telling you, if you fall in that category, there's probably somebody in your life that's trying to help you understand something that you are intentionally rejecting. Even if you think that person doesn't have anything to offer you. Like I think for me, one of the worst things that I'm hearing today is that a lot of the younger generation seem to think that their parents don't have a thing to offer them because they don't necessarily make the money that they want to make.
Mm.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. You want to know why? Because that's the same logic point that we'll have in saying that, well, if a person ain't married, they shouldn't be given marital advice. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you mean to tell me you don't believe that a person can understand principles as it pertains to what is right and teach you those principles, even though they may not have gotten the opportunity to exercise those principles in their life? Come on, man. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Everybody don't get the opportunity to be married. At least I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I will also say it like this: maybe some of these people understand what marriage really is, and the people who want to get married don't want to accept the reality of the truth. They want their version of marriage.
Mm-hmm. Their version of marriage. Absolutely. Mm. We on one tonight. Moving along with the rapid fire questions again. If you're here, thank you for being here. Go ahead and hit that like button, share it, all the thing. Really appreciate you for being here tonight. 10 rapid fire questions. These going to be interesting. Um, One person you wish you understood better.
My dad.
Mm,
That's easy. No
easy.
hesitation.
No hesitation.
Yep.
Okay. A perspective that recently surprised you.
My son,
Ooh.
my youngest son.
I will say this though. To both of those, my response to one person I wish I understood better is not one, it's a group, and it's my sons. That was
Mhm.
my answer. And then right up under that, a perspective that recently surprised me. Um, I don't have one, but I would like it to be something for my sons. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Note to self right there. Book or movie that shifted your outlook.
Man, if you want to talk movies, I can talk a number of them. um, man, Goodwill Hunting is a good one. I'm not sure if a lot of people are familiar with that. It has Matt Damon in it. It is a really good movie. I give you, what I'm saying is probably going to follow a logic trail. The Accountant with Ben Affleck. If you've never seen The Accountant, it is a really good movie. And if you go and watch both of those movies, Goodwill Hunting, The Accountant 1 and 2, um, they're autistic adults. Um, that's a perspective I never knew when I
Mm,
was growing up. I was not familiar with it. Um, but the more I learned about it, the more I became infatuated with understanding it. You know what I'm saying? Like
mhm,
understanding how they see the world. Because it's easy for us to say, "Oh, everybody's not the same," because we want everybody to accept our perspective.
mhm,
But then by the same token, we'll be the same people that judge others and how they see it because they're not like you.
mhm,
So I became fascinated with, you know, just understanding how, um, people with autism actually see the world.
mhm,
When for the person who doesn't understand sarcasm, what does that look like? A person who
mhm,
does not have a filter, like they will not tell you a lie. Like if you ask them a question, because I think I got some of that in me. Don't get me wrong.
mhm,
If you ask them a question, they're going to give you the raw, honest truth. Like, is that wrong? No, that's not
Oh.
wrong. You know what I'm saying? Everybody should give the raw, honest truth. Well, honey,
Mhm.
how do I look? You shouldn't put that on. In fact, you
Yeah.
shouldn't leave the house with that on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you, but you don't see it as help because you want me to tell you what makes you feel good. I'm sorry, I'm just
Mhm.
not that person.
Yeah.
So I think when I look at certain things like that, I am fascinated just by understanding different perspectives. I'm fascinated by understanding different cultures and how they look at our culture, right? You'll be surprised how many people look at the United States culture and say that we're arrogant.
Mm. Mhm.
And they will literally say American arrogance.
Mm.
So it's a very interesting thing. So I know I kind of went outside of your question because you asked about movies and books. Uh,
Mhm.
and I don't want to change the dynamics because people write books and people make movies.
Yep.
I think the perspective comes from the people. And when you understand those people's perspectives that create these books, like why did they create that book? Why did they create this movie? Why did they
Mm.
create a movie? Like I can't remember the name of it, but it was one guy. He was definitely autistic, and he had a job, and he had a job as a receptionist, and he was crushing feelings. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? I was laughing, but
Because he was so direct with it.
he was so direct. But it wasn't. It's not his fault. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And I think we live in a world to where people want to be understood first as opposed to seeking to understand somebody else.
Mm.
Like do it first. Seek to understand somebody else before you desire to be understood. But I think it's in our culture as Americans to struggle with that. We have to be taught that we should seek to understand before we're understood. Um, and then, I mean, pick one because
Mhm.
all of these to me
Yeah.
are perspective changers because
Mhm.
that's why I dibble and dabble into self-help books, right? Like all of these, I mean, 100% of them are perspective changers. And I'm going through a perspective change right now as it pertains to my financial outlook on reality. And it's not that it was, and I'm saying this and I'm about to give myself grace where I don't need it, right?
Mm.
It was bad because it conceded to a system, but the system is directed to keep you in a certain space. So now where my perspective is being shift now, it's like, whoa, I had no idea that this is what it was supposed to be. Sure. But why didn't you have any idea of that? Because these conversations only happen amongst a certain select group of people. And
Mm.
because those conversations only happen amongst a certain select group of people, everybody else has this thing to say the rich keeps getting richer.
Mhm.
But are they just recycling it amongst themselves? Or are they doing it based upon principles?
Mm.
That's the key for me. And so when I
Mm.
started asking questions, I started getting answers. So that kind of goes back to another book. Good leaders ask great questions. The quality of the answers you get are determined by the quality of the question that you ask. So if you ask a simple question, you get a simple answer. You ask a good question, you get a very good answer. You ask a great question, you get a phenomenal answer. And so I just started focusing on asking better questions.
Mm. I like that. I like that. Um, Keeping going with the rapid fire question. Easy or hard admitting you're wrong?
Right now, easy.
Mm.
When I
Easy.
was younger, difficult.
Same here. Um, a phrase you use to see others' side.
I don't think I have a particular phrase. It depends upon the dynamics of it depends upon the situation that we're in. If I think we talked about this. I can't remember what the question was on Friday night. What would you do? You asked the question
Mhm.
was what would you do if your wife said that you don't listen or something like that? Remember that?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep.
And I asked the question in the midst of that. And that's the thing because it's not like I would be rejecting what she has said, but I need for you to help me to understand what that means. Sometimes we make statements that have No rhyme or no reason, because we're making those statements to shift the balance of power. But if a person exists in a space to where they recognize that the balance of power is trying to be shift, stabilize the environment by asking a question, asking for objectivity of that thing. So when you say you never listen, that's what it was. You never listen, right? Help me to understand what that looks like. What do you mean? Give me an example of I never listen. Because
Yeah.
you can't give me an example of that, because the word never makes it a generalized statement. And once you use that term, you're talking from a space of your emotions, not reality. So when I ask you a question to bring you back to reality, it's very difficult for you to do it. I'm only using that as an example because I think that works across all spectrums. So you feel it's an attack against you because you don't have a response. But that doesn't mean it's an attack against you. It may have been asked to help you more than hurt you. So, to kind of get to the point of understanding perspectives, we ask questions. Ask questions about the statement that you heard or the curiosity that you have, right? Just because a person never made a statement, you can become curious. I talk about this when I talk to captains and lieutenants every cycle.
Mm-hmm.
In the realm of leadership, you're going to have a diverse population. When leaders become curious about people in their formation, then they start to develop great relationships, because those people feel like, because you're curious about who I am and where I came from and what do I do during this time of year and how do you guys celebrate Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, like what do you do for Thanksgiving during this Thanksgiving break? Like, they kind of feel like you like them. And that's not necessarily a wrong, perspective. It's just become more curious about other people than forceful about giving them your resume. Nobody
Mm.
cares. Oh, I came from this place. I got this degree and I got that degree and blah, blah, blah. Come on, man, get over yourself.
Yep. I like it. um, a phrase. No, no, no. Time you wish someone saw your side. A time you wish someone saw your side.
I think I speak for most men that ever been through a divorce, because men are not necessarily conditioned to spew the realities and the details of what they've been through. We kind
Mm-hmm.
of grin and bear it. We just kind of shoulder it and march on. To where on the other side, the ex at that point is conditioned to share the details, her perspective of what
Mm-hmm.
actually happened, to anybody who will listen to her that's actually on her team. I'm gonna say it again. Anybody who will listen to her that's already on her team. So those people aren't going to say anything or ask any questions to challenge her perspective. They're going to accept the perspective as 100% face value. Now, I started off wrong, and I take that back. I think I speak for most men, not all men, because there are some men who do the exact same thing. But most of us, it's like we're just shoulder it. We don't vent about it. We deal with it. We deal with the societal pressures that come from it. We deal with the legal frustrations that come behind it. And at some point, either we break and we go seek some help, or we find somebody, we find, or somebody finds us. I say it that way. Somebody finds us who cares enough about us to allow us to vent. And so, in the realm of that, what I believe wholeheartedly is that if in this world, the world view people as people and not as gender-based individuals, then I think what we'll realize that in the space of any given situation, there's always two sides to every story. But the two sides to every story is not the truth. It is just their perspective to the story. But down the middle lies the truth. And when you hear both perspectives, that'll get closer to the truth. And the reality of the truth is that I don't care who you are, both parties participated in the wrong that exists. It took
Mm-hmm.
two parties to come together, it took two parties to separate. Now, can we look at right and wrong based upon um, based upon chronological time? Sure, we can. But at that stage, is it really necessary? or is it necessary for each person to own the fact of what they did that contributed to the demise of the relationship? So that's
Mhm.
kind of like my answer, long-winded answer to your question. I
Mhm.
think we go back to the basics and view every person, man, woman, boy, girl, whatever, as a person and not a gender-based individual, then I think we can get to the space where we can start hearing others through the same lens that we hear everyone else.
I agree. I am happily married. This is my second marriage. Glad all day long and twice on Sunday. I do remember some times in my first marriage when I was just like, man, you could just see this perspective, like, and it wasn't ego. It was just like, I know 100% that I'm legit or right about this, but you just can't see it. And because you can't see it or don't want to see it, or for whatever reason, we are missing out on something. You know what I'm saying? So I
Mhm.
think that would apply in a sense to this marriage, not that way, but those things can always come up.
Sure.
It can be very challenging when we view, and this is relationships in general, with our mom and dads and everybody, especially siblings or whoever, like people that we want to help and support. And we were like, hey, look, this perspective will shift things in your life and you can progress and move forward and do great things. But you choose to not want to have anything to do with the perspective. We talked about the reds and the blues. In a sense, if people would change their perspective and say, you know what, I'm not going to just rock with just this side, but I'm going to challenge and I'm going to listen to other perspectives about this, formulate my own opinion, and
Right.
then cast my vote or cast whatever or my decision is based off of that. So I
Yeah.
think this is something that we can see on a regular basis on social media in some of our relationships all the time.
Yeah, man.
Um, do you prefer listening or speaking if you had to choose one?
Listening.
Listening all day long. I want to hear somebody else's perspective. We, like you mentioned earlier, we talking about mastering the art of perspective. And
Yep.
if I'm constantly speaking, then maybe I'm just focused more so on me getting my perspective to you versus me trying to master and learn from you.
Right.
Um, I like that, man. It was some good rapid fire. I'm glad we went a little bit deeper into some of those as well.
Yeah, man.
I think we got time for one question, and then I think we can do a scenario and then wrap it up. Um, yeah, here we go. Hmm, it's a good one. We are just talking about it. We kind of talked about it all show. How can perspective shift conflicts into solutions?
By recognizing that conflicts aren't a personal attack.
Hmm.
In our immature state, and I kind of mentioned it previously, if a person does not accept what it is that I'm saying, or have a different viewpoint of what I'm saying, then sometimes we view it as a personal attack. We can have conflicting opinions, but when we get into conflict, that's a problem.
Mm.
Having conflicting opinions is okay. But then when conflict in a relationship shows up, we should view conflict as something good because conflict has now revealed something in our relationship that we can and should work on. So when we shift our perspective from all conflict is bad, then we can start seeing it a different way. And if
Hmm.
we can shift it to conflict itself is good, but how we behave in conflict needs to change, then that by itself will help us get closer to solutions.
I ain't adding none to that. That was 100% good to go with that one. Um, It's a scenario question, and it's like that, and it's meant to end with the three dots on purpose. It allows you to kind of spin it or go wherever you want to go with this scenario. So here's the scenario: a husband ignores his wife's complaints until he lives one day doing her tasks.
Okay, let's start off with the husband ignores. um,
Ooh.
I think it's
Mm.
problematic to ignore anybody,
Hmm.
but it's more problematic to ignore your spouse. That alone says a lot. It says how you view marriage. It says how you view the person that you're married to. It says how you view your position in the marriage. But then I don't want to stop there. I want to go to wife's complaints. I don't want to hear your complaints. I'm sorry. Don't come to me complaining. Come to me with a problem statement and your proposed solution. And if you don't have a proposed solution, come to me with a problem statement and ask, can we together decide what a proposed solution is? Because based upon this statement, it seems as though that she was complaining about her tasks.
Hmm.
What do you want me to do about that?
Hmm.
They're your tasks. And again, I know somebody in the comments is thinking, "Oh, she complained about washing the dishes, so we can split some of the household chore." What makes you think that the task in the statement is just focus on household chores?
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I don't know too many men who will marry a woman who complains about household chores. I still also, by that same token, don't know too many men who can't do household chores themselves, because
Hmm.
most of the men I know are mature. So at the end of the day, if you're complaining about her task, I need to understand what her tasks are, right? So that we can come up with a solution. But I mean, again, it's a lot of underlining things in the statement that are unknown. But that's
Hmm.
kind of like where I would start off with this statement right here.
Man, there was a lot. And I think you started off perfectly when you said the husband ignores, because that means what I'm thinking is that maybe she did complain versus having a conversation. And that's why they're at this point, because you came to him complaining. We're going to say her task. But again, I get it. If in this household, it seemed like she had her task. And I get it. They're your tasks. I got tasks too. Cut this grass. It's hot sometimes. 7 o'clock in the morning sometimes. It's still 85, 90 degrees sometimes in North Carolina. I can go and complain. Or I can say, babe, you know what? I ain't cutting the grass this weekend. I'm gonna call coach and I'm gonna ask him to send me the number to his yard man, and I'm gonna have somebody else do it this weekend. I'm gonna come up with a solution on my own. You know what I mean? That's me.
Sure.
But when it's something like that, that is considered my task. If I have some tasks that, say, for instance, I am supposed to do some task around the house or something like that, and then life happens, I'm supposed to, I don't know, I'm supposed to wash the dishes on Thursday, right? But this Thursday, I got something else I got to do. And then next Thursday it happens, and then next Thursday it happens, or something like that. Eventually, I'm gonna come up and like, babe, look, I know you don't want to do it, but I'm going to bring something up. Whatever it is, I'm going to bring it to the table, and I'm not just going to sit back and complain about it. Again, like you mentioned, the complaint meaning that they probably hadn't had the conversation, and instead of having a conversation, she's just bringing up the complaints. So again, a lot of undertones. There's a lot more that could be added to it, but that's why it's a scenario, and we can kind of go how we want to with it.
That's right.
Um, you got anything else?
No, man, that was good.
It was good. I like it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be very respectful of y'all time. Sometimes we didn't kind of kept y'all over a little bit. So we want to make sure that we be respectful of everybody's times. It's Tuesday. Again, people got kids, people got a lot of stuff going on. Got to get their clothes off for school and work tomorrow. So with that being said, appreciate y'all for being here. Check us out this Friday on Empower Perspective Podcast for another episode of Hearts of Men. And I think that's it, right?
Yes, sir. You got it.
All right. Y'all have a great one. We out.